With this video, I will be starting the Rotten Blood series, where I will be unloading hunting guides for the spawns, but also the quest itself, so subscribe if you're interested. Now, for this first video, I decided to go with the Darklight Core, since it is the one I had the most experience with, but as a disclaimer, I am the lowest level on my party, so I will be recommending levels based off my team average rather than myself, and on this video, I will cover the labs for level 1Ks, level 1200s, and level 1500s average. Before I start the first lap, here is some general information. There is 4 creatures in here. Strikers and Martyrs are the most common creature, followed by Pillars and Swords in last place. This is useful to know in the case of choosing praise. Damage wise, the Pillars are the most scary when in melee range, especially for mages. Darklight Matters are ranged creatures that sit 1 square away from the box, so it's common to leave them in range form to kill more creatures per pull. However, they do retarget sometimes, and it can be hard to notice when they are targeting a mage. Additionally, their AoE is quite common, so pulls with more of them can be dangerous on the mages the most. Pillars have a wave attack, so when mages are attacking from the sides, they can get hit more often. Darklight sources are the ones to retarget the most often, so it's recommended for the EK to rest them when running through. And strikers are the least dangerous creature to have on a mage, although this is highly dependent on the levels. Defensively, as the EK, the damage distribution looks like this. This icon represents agony damage, which is the main mechanic of the spawn. Strikers shoot an agony field and sorcerers do a cross field attack. Both of these remain for like 30 seconds and will trigger the agony curse when stepping on them, but as the EK, just being on top of one resets the timer. This agony curse does full damage based off the character's max HP. It cannot be mitigated by anything, so it's a constant unavoidable damage. You can remove the fields with destroy field runes, but this is not applicable during hunts. So as the EK, it's recommended to go with defensive imbuements for energy, and more importantly for mages too, with whatever ice protection you can fit into your set. This is how my team gear up internalizers. Lastly, these creatures are weak to fire, followed by earth and then physical. Because of this, sorcerers should be using the Great Fire Wave with the regular Fire Wave. The second is a lot weaker and it barely does the damage of a GFP, however since it is a spell, it means he gets to use UHs on his attack turns, which is of course massively important for these hunts. So to allow him more room to use UHs, we have pretty much a formation predetermined where Druid takes wave spot, MS stands in front of him, and with the improvements on the mass res, he is able to heal everyone in between seals. This is something highly recommended to go with. It does require a lot of trust on the druid, but also personal awareness to know when it's necessary to move or ban a shield, because otherwise moving around to kite creatures can and will result in luring more creatures, but also less heals on the EK most likely. And I find important pointing this out as it will be shown in the labs regardless of the levels. Lastly, it's hard to recommend wheels at this point, because it can be different based on levels and gems available. As EK, on the lower levels, I prioritize HP gems even though it did more damage on the agony ticks. RPs can go for anything else but grenade and empowerment, and my druid finds it more beneficial to go with improvements on heals rather than attacks. As for the sorcerer, he prioritizes the bigger AoE debuff and upgrades on Fire Wave. And for charms, it looks like this. I personally didn't use dodge at the start for quite a while, but once the labs got harder, I tried out using dodge and I like it a lot now. With that said, let's start with the easiest lab and best to use for getting bestiary. This lab consists of 7 pools, all of them near the entrance, and it is the most common way people hunt Darklight. I'm starting with a clip where I was under level 900 and our average was under 1k, simply to showcase that if using defensive praise or even adding a 5th person, you can hunt these spawns at lower levels, and even with 5 people at low 1ks with charms, you might still be able to hunt this lab. For the first pool, you can get close to the stairs and creatures come on their own. Once you start doing the lab, the actual pool is behind the stairs. Now go up, and it will depend if you want extra creatures, as there is going to be a few more by the southeast, and if anyone moves to the left, they will bring more. But you shouldn't do that as those are part of the next pool. The creatures on this one tends to walk around. Most times I will find the 8 monsters by the middle of the path and settle there, and others I will have to go further down to the corner. As the EK, I will pay attention to the amount of creatures and stop when you're close to 8, since most of the times, even if you start a pool without a full box, they might walk on their own after, and the more you move results in extra creatures, which is not ideal for this low range. On this pool, we stay right by the entrance to this open area, and then we're splitting it up in 2. Here we'll pick a bit towards the southwest, and then the pool should be a bit further out north to get 8 creatures. After this, go east and down the stairs, and it helps to bring trophy stands. That way the rest of the team can go down through the wall and be able to attack right away. For this pool, you want to get to this spot and pick to the east and back to lure the creatures you might be missing. Sometimes I will lose out on the spot to get back, but you can still get hit by 7 creatures. Next up, go in and make sure to pick south to bring the creatures out of there, and then you can stop nearby. Then follow the path east and set up next to this mountain, which will only leave one path on each side for creatures to pass by, and is great for the RP to block if necessary. With that, the lap is completed. On this hunt, only the druid had charms and we were doing close to 12kk raw. Without charms, you can expect between the 8 to 11kk depending on the team's level. And fully charmed, I believe this lap caps out around the 14kk raw, at which point it starts getting overkill. Moving on, at one point we started 5-manning and we did a lap like this. I don't have footage saved for that particular lap, but this is how it went. However, this next lap for 1300s should fit a 5-man party of lower level range. You gotta get into this spawn normally and then head north. Once you get to this pool is when the lap will begin. This one tends to be quite hard during our hunts, but you can make a few changes to make it easier. For now, you want to make sure to grab the creatures from the east, otherwise those will be brought to the next pool which has less space to move, and it's better to not have too much overlure. Go northeast and stop at this spot. I sometimes will have to pick north to grab the aggro of the creatures, but they often come on their own. You also don't want to overdo it, as some of these creatures are for the next pool, which is northwest of here. For this one, I set up close to this pillar. Most of the times I get enough creatures right away, and others I might move in further. After this, go northwest. For this one, we started doing east of these pillars, and later on we move it to the northwest. The first one is the easier pool, as it takes less time running and you set up right away. If you want some extra creatures, then you can take it further like I'm doing here. For the next one, go south, and sometimes I need to lure the creatures from around the south, but most of the times I am able to set up and have enough for the pool. Then continue by going southwest. This one I changed my spot often based on the amount of creatures. It's also important to pay attention to the amount of creatures left alive from the previous pool, as those will be lured and often retarget mages. This next one, we have the RP tank the extra creatures as there is no room on the south, but it can be done with the EK setting in the middle if you prefer to have room to move around him. That's what we did at the start, but now we're doing it like this to allow 2 wave spots for the mages. Next up, go east and slow lure creatures on the way to avoid them going on the mages, and set up when you get at least 8 creatures. Often is around this bridge, which by the way is 1 square path even though it looks like more. After this, we will go back to the first pool, but that's for our current level. At the start, we will do another pool around this area, which will make the next pool a lot safer. If you do it that way, then by the time you get to the southeast pool, the EK should pick south to grab 2 to 3 creatures, and with that you get enough for a pool with the ones to the east. This lap should be around the 14 to 15kk at this level, and its limit cap is of 18kk. At that point you start overkilling and you add a few pools, and let's cover the lap for 1500s. For this one is the same lap I just covered, but with the extra levels on the team, you are able to leave the pools earlier as the EK and they kill the creatures on the way to the next one. Now for the differences, on the first pool, I will set up more in the middle and have the RP pick east to bring the extras, and hit kites or tags around my box. When creatures are red HP, I move on to the next pool. This one remains the same, with the addition of the RP bringing creatures from the previous pool, which pretty much carries on for every pool on this hunt. Next pools are the same, with me standing to the northwest on this one. Once we reach this one is where it changes. After finishing, we now go southwest and I set around the middle of this part, leaving room for north and east wave spots. This one always has extra creatures coming from all directions, so it ends up making everyone move around. Next up, go southeast, and here I pick south to get more creatures, and then after that we will get back into the lab by going north. This one I personally like to change positions if I see only melee creatures, as that means once I get to the spot we likely will end up with extras. That does end up changing the next couple pulls when that happens, which looks like what I described on the easier lab, making 2 pulls out of the next area. On this lab, our best experience pick was of 20.8kk raw, when using drawn potions and some attack praise, so at the very least it's good up to the 21kk raw, and then maybe it starts to overkill, but I haven't gotten that far yet. Additionally to the hunt, it's worth mentioning that regardless of the lab or levels, we will include the boss at the end of the hunt. This one with a team of 1200s is doable for men. Level 1 case will need a 5th person. And since it gives good experience, we make sure to get there with 1 minute left of an experience boost to use it on the boss. For the boss fight, what you need to know is that every 90 seconds, a portal appears in the middle of the room and the EK needs to walk a bludgeon into it. Then they disappear and the EK takes the boss for 12 seconds. Pay attention to the raw message from the boss and then swap places with the RP again. For the shooters, the damage taken is high energy, so gear up for that. And pay attention to the position of the boss, as getting beam can kill a mage and even the RP if he's half HP. And additionally, when the boss spawns these pillars, it also does a chain attack. This bounces off if you are standing in range, but also can refresh the chain and charges if you are one square next to the pillars or if the RP is. I will be making a separate video for the quest guide and I'll include more information then. With that said, this one is complete. It's safe to say that Darklight can be hunted in many ways since it can fit teams from level 800s to 3Ks. This just happens to be the way I have hunted it personally and with how much experience we were making. So hopefully they are able to help anyone getting into it or to upgrade their hunts. Thank you for watching and consider subscribing if you like the content. See you on the next one.